everybody, this is Dan, and tonight we are conducting an interview, doing a community spotlight on one of our favorite community photographers. You know him as the guy in the fox hat. Welcome, David.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing during these hard times?
Doing pretty good, man. You just kind of woke me up from a nap, but I'm doing pretty good.
No worries. Well, do you got some time to talk with us about the community, the cosplay community, the conventions and whatnot? Maybe give a little bit of insight to what it's like to be a popular cosplay photographer.
Popular, huh? So what's been thrown around? It's coming from you, man. It's coming from you. But yeah, I've got time.
Yeah.
I've always got time.
Yeah, no, we definitely love, for those of you that don't know, David's been working with us at the Cosplay Ball for pretty much the last year, actually. He's been doing some really, really great work. Very professional, very talented. You know, if you want to have a photographer at your event, I definitely recommend him. So, David, we don't really get a lot of time to kind of chat at these events. So, tell us a little
We
bit
really
about
don't.
yourself.
Yeah, no kidding, man. You and I, this is probably the first time you and I actually sit down one-on-one like this. What about me, huh? Well, what can I say? I'm David Velez. I'm a cosplay photographer. Been doing it for, I'd say since 2018. So roughly 2 years now.
Wow.
Uh,
So just photography in general, or did you start with cosplay photography? Did you do other forms?
no, man, it's a wild story. I actually started farther back. I started in 2013 as
Wow.
a wrestling photographer. I was
Oh,
very, I
cool.
was. You could probably tell. You could see John Cena right behind
I
me.
do see him, yeah.
Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh my God, he's a John Cena fan." But no, I started. I started in 2013. I was working with a couple of wrestling promotions all around, and as their photographer. And by 2017, I was touring France for a bit. I was in Paris, and I thought, oh, you know what? I should. Wrestling's not too much. It's not so different from cosplay when you kind of think about it in a way. It's all very like imaginative. Their characters are larger than life beings. So the fact that it's like, oh, it's an easy transition. I could probably do this. So why not? So I gave it a try. I did. I started off. I left the wrestling business and I went on to doing cosplay.
I see. I mean, that makes a lot of sense since, wrestling photography would kind of go into action photography. But also, I remember when you first came to our events, what really impressed me was your candids, actually, like the shots that you would get of the event. Like, even when people are not specifically posing, you always caught them at their best. I even remember some of the shots you took of some of my dancers. They were very impressive. We even used them for our poster. So that's
Uh,
pretty awesome. Cool. And did you have any
yeah.
formal training? Like, did you go to school for this or?
I went to school, but not for photography. I went for other things. Photography was just something uh, that I've been doing as a hobby for years, for a long time. But now it's like something that I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah, yeah. I guess I can do it as a career. I guess I can push it forward. Depending on if the people want me or not.
I mean, you're doing a great job. Like, I really love the work you're putting out, but also you're very professional to work with. And as you just explained, you had a background in doing actual work in photography. Like, you were providing a service. So I imagine a lot of the experience you had having to act professionally in this, or acting in a professional setting, translated well to how you interact with people when you do cosplay photography, because that's something that I've personally been very impressed with you by. Um, what was your first event? Like, was it one of the local ones, like Fanime, or?
Uh, as a photographer, no. My first event was at Wizard World in Portland. Keep in mind, when I got the idea to do cosplay photography, I was in France, dude, and I thought, I'm just gonna live in France, and I'm gonna be a Paris-based cosplay photographer. Something led to another, but I thought to myself, nah, I'm just gonna go up north and head back to the States. And from Portland, I was originally that's where I became Portland based. I sound like Porky Pig all of a sudden, man. you
No
know.
worries.
So yeah, no, I went to Portland, moved to Portland, lived there for a while, and then Wizard World Portland 2018 was my first event as a photographer. But I've been to previous conventions just as a spectator. Fanime, Anime Expo. I went to
Gotcha.
the very first Crunchyroll Expo actually.
Cool. Do you have an event that you would consider your favorite, like whether it's one of the cons or um, like some of the smaller events, the gatherings, any events that particularly speak to you, stuff that you really look forward to?
Well, I love it's a that's a good question. I like all events personally. I'm a big fan of the big conventions. I'm a bigger fan of the gatherings. I feel like gatherings you can actually it's more down to earth kind of thing. You can actually slow down just a bit and talk to people. Whereas at conventions, it's a little more. You got to speed things up because you got to be at certain places. You got to work with certain people. You're like, okay, it's Sunday. I'm only going to work till half day because I got to go to the artist alley before they close and stuff like that. And the cosplay ball is one of my favorites too because it's.
Aw.
I've never like hey, man, 120 different events I've been to. I've never seen one where it's cosplay and dancing at the same time. So it's like a.
Aw, thank
And
you.
I always joke around with people like, "Oh, you're a cosplay photographer." I'm like, "No, I'm more of a song and dance man."
Yeah, well, we love having you at the events, that's for sure, you know. It's it's all about bringing people together. That's what I love about having these events. And that's I'm hoping that, even without us being able to physically gather during these times, we still are able to find ways to bring us together, which is why I really appreciate that you're willing to talk with me about some of these things so like other people can kind of reflect on, oh, what do I love about events. So I got a question for you. Do you ever get nervous when it comes to working with cosplayers, models that you haven't worked with before?
Oh man, it happens to me with anyone I work with. Yeah, I still do it to this day. Uh, I'm an introvert. I'll be honest with you. I'm not the most outgoing person when it comes to like socializing. It's very difficult for me.
I see. Do you almost
So
kind of sorry to interrupt. Do you ever feel like your art, your photography, it kind of gives you an opportunity to try to help yourself become more outgoing. The reason I ask you this is because I can relate to this in a big way. Like I also identify as an introvert. Like my personality type is INTJ, and a lot of my clients when I teach dance never believe me. But one of
yeah,
the reasons why I feel like I'm able to come across as more outgoing and charismatic is because of me using dance to kind of reinvent myself. And then as someone that's taken up a little bit of photography myself recently, I also feel like photography has kind of helped me to become more expressive, more open to communicating with others, especially strangers. It's kind of like an automatic icebreaker in a sense.
yeah, definitely. The hardest part for me is it's the start. Approaching someone, especially that I've never worked with, that's to me the hardest thing. Just especially at conventions, and if I'm following the person too, if I've seen their work previously, there's there's a there's a ton of people I worked with that um, it's like I'll be sitting in the corner, I'll be standing like somewhere far away, and I'll be like, all right, David, you just gotta go up and say hi, and can I take a photo and stuff like that. And it'll take me about 30 minutes just to like amp myself up and be like that. But once we get the ball rolling, then I'm like, okay, they're cool with it. Cool, I can just be myself and do whatever it is I got to do and take some photos. And if they're willing to work with me again, that second time's a little bit easier.
That's awesome. Has there ever been an instance where like you'll see someone that's like extremely popular and you're just like totally starstruck? Like if you saw Jessica Negri in front of you like right now, for instance, let's just use her as an example,
Mm.
and like would you be able to approach her and be like, hey, could I take your photo?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it'll take me a while. As far as getting starstruck goes, man, I gotta tell you, man, I don't. I've dined with kings and queens and stuff, and I've never been too impressed. But I don't get as starstruck as I used to. Um, I think much of that to the wrestling business. When I did wrestling, they would bring some of the big, like, depending on the organizations I would work with, they would bring some of the big stars. Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, John Cena. At one point, I met him, so
Oh wow.
I kind of, I kind of got used to it. I'm just like, yeah, it's an. I've come to learn that they're people, they're human beings just like me, and you gotta respect them for what they are, human beings and talented people. That's about it. So like, so yeah, approaching someone I can generally do. It's just it's me myself that I'm the one that's gonna be like, okay, approach, say hi, get the photo.
A little bit of a tangent, but like regarding some of these people you just mentioned, um, is there among the names that you just listed, who would you say was the most interesting? Like I imagine, like if I were to have a conversation with John Cena, there'd be so many things I'd want to know about him.
John Cena was. I joked with him the first time I met him. My friend got starstruck, and he's like, "Hey, man, it's John Cena over there," and he's like standing like 10, 15 feet away from me. I'm like, I don't see him. And John's like looking at me. He's like, dude, really? Come on, man. What's up with that? And I'm like, the biggest, the most interesting one, the most interesting one I've met, Brett was Brett the Hitman Hart, and he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But he's a lot of like his idealisms, the way how he has kept in ring, out of the ring professionalism. You know, that's kind of where I got the idea of like how to treat everyone and the community in the professional way. It's like don't treat it as just some I can do, whatever. If you're gonna do it right, do it correctly, and do it respectfully. You're among people, respect them for what they do, just like you would want them to respect yourself or something. That's all clumsy stuff I'm saying.
No, I get it. I mean, and again, it definitely shows because that's one of the things that made you stand out when I was looking at photographers that I wanted to have working my events. Like I just remember you showed up, like you weren't even one of the photographers that we specifically asked to man a portrait. So
Yeah,
I didn't know who you were back then. But then I kind of noticed like how you're behaving. And I was like, huh, this guy has like a really nice professional quality about him. So I guess you would kind of say that this interaction that you were just talking about was very definitive in regards to how you wanted to conduct yourself. Is that an accurate statement?
yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Um, so, what advice, when it comes to conducting your shoots, what advice do you have for people when it comes to being a part of your shoot?
Uh, as a model, or um, if let's say if you're the model, I always encourage people, and this is the big thing, because you know with every with all the good that's in the community, you also get your bad. So I always encourage people. It's like, oh, don't come alone.
Hmm,
Give
that's
me a sec. Bring a friend with you, man. I don't care if we're I don't care if we're like this close buddies. Bring yourself a friend, because there's gonna be moments where I don't know if you can still hear me. Sorry about that. There's gonna be moments where your hair's gonna go in a certain way, or your outfit or something's gonna go a certain way. And I have this significant rules. I don't like touching people.
hmm,
That's just me. Even if I don't care if the community put the rule or didn't, I just don't like
makes
touching.
sense.
So I tell people like bring a friend over. that can help you with that kind of stuff. So if like you're like, okay, I think the hair's like parting in a certain way, or the hat's crooked, can you go and fix it? That way, they're more comfortable, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, we can do that.
Definitely makes sense, and I imagine people really appreciate that you're trying to facilitate an environment that's very comforting and um, allows them to be at ease. Like you want people to feel uninhibited. One of the things that I find that's unfortunately trending is that sometimes people like to police each other on how to cosplay correctly and whatnot.
Yeah.
If you have someone that comes to you and they, for no fault of their own, come in with that sense of insecurity that, oh, I fear that I'm not good enough as a cosplayer or as a model. What would you try to do to help them feel at ease? And I know this is not an easy question because you never can really know someone better than they know themselves.
Um, I haven't looked into it that much. It hasn't really actually happened to me as far as like, people feeling insecure. I always try to praise them. I always praise people for their work, regardless. You know, if they're like, even if they bought their cosplay at a store, I shoot anybody.
Yeah, as long as they feel good about themselves, as long as they're enjoying having a good time.
Yeah, as long as they're having a good time, as long as I'm having a good time, I don't see like the need to be picky or the need to be like the need for this competitive spirit.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that a lot. The biggest difference I've noticed, because for me, like I come from the Pacific Northwest community, which is Portland up to Washington, Seattle, and that's where I got that whole laid back attitude. It's because up there it's such a laid back community. And the other photographers I've met there, Jason Delaney, Hudson Michael, these are Adam Kupka. These are people that they were a big influence on the idea of how to work with other people. And coming down here, it's like I noticed that big competition amongst not just photographers but cosplayers alike. I'm just like, oh man, oh boy, what did we get myself into? I'm like, part of me, that's why sometimes I'm a little scared of going to Los Angeles because man, if it's bad up here, I can only imagine down there. And I think Danny told me that once. NorCal Rebel told me that once. I'm like, oh yeah, no, Los Angeles is amazing, but it's super competitive. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm staying up here, man. There's no way I'm going down there.
Yeah, I do agree with that, unfortunately. I mean, I'll admit this is a bit of a generalization, but I can't really speak specifically for the cons and the cosplay community since I've never lived in Los Angeles and LA, but I do travel there frequently, and I do notice that certain qualities you tend to find here in Silicon Valley sometimes end up being more amplified due to the culture. I have spent some time living in the Pacific Northwest. Usually, I would spend my summers there during high school, so I definitely noticed there was much more of a laid back vibe. Like in the Renton, Seattle area, you would get.
Oh,
I guess there was like if I had to describe it very, very briefly, I could say you're more like I always felt like you were more likely to find someone that was willing to help their neighbor in the Seattle area versus here. Like I love it here. Like I've lived here my whole life. I would never leave, but I will admit that I do notice that trend. That's one of the reasons why I try to run the events that I run. It's less about being competitive and more about just bringing people together regardless of the background. Like one of the things that sometimes I'll check the Cosplay Ball inbox and people will say, oh, I really want to attend this event, but I don't think my cosplay is good enough. Like I have a feeling that people will expect for me to be really, really fancily dressed. Like we expect it to be formal. It's like, no, you don't need to be super formal. Like I know people sometimes associate ballroom dancing with like super formal wear and like
Tuxedos
long
and
tuxedos and cocktail dresses. And I tell people, you know, you're gonna be dancing and having fun. Bring something that you're comfortable sweating in. Like bring something that you can move in. You know, like I don't care how formal it is. Like
yeah,
you've seen some of the cosplays that show up at our events. You know, as long as people feel good
yeah,
and are because the idea behind our event is we're trying to get people to become more confident through dancing. But if
yeah,
people are too intimidated to even show up in the first place, then it's like, okay, you know, what's the good of our event if people don't even show up? So we want to make it as accessible as possible. So we say, you know,
yeah.
there's no such thing as being good enough to attend our event. You just have to want to be there, and that's it. So, you know, definitely nice to kind of have more of that mentality in our community. So, besides the photography aspect, what else do you enjoy when it comes to being a part of the cosplay community?
Oh, just the usual, man. It ain't much. Just hanging out with people, getting to meet new people. It's as best as I can. Work on my social socialization. I guess that's the terminology that I like to call it, or something. I don't even know if it's on the dictionary. I'll have to check it out later.
No
But
worries,
the
I
idea
get
of
what you're talking
so
about.
but the idea of socializing with more people, I really enjoy that. One of my biggest favorite things to do is meet other artists, and I'm not talking about like photographers or cosplay. I meant like the actual people that draw and do art, like artwork, painting, drawings. Those ones always fascinate me. I'm always fascinated by that kind of stuff, and I'm a sucker for like always buying posters, always buying keychains of people's artworks because that fascinates me. It's like, wow, you actually sat down and you did all of that. I'm like, man, that's that's the other one of the other things that impresses me. I mean, I'll do the same thing for cosplayers. Don't get me wrong. I'll sit there and be like, man, you actually put together an entire Charizard outfit or costume. That's wow, okay, with functioning wings and everything. Shoot. Okay, that's impressive. You got me, man. But you know, on the quieter side of things, I always admire artists the most, and getting the chance to talk to them is always fun.
Has
Whenever I,
there been an artist that you've met in the last few years that like you don't have to name them if you want, but like is there anyone that you remember that really struck out to you as wow, this is like someone that like has like a philosophy that's like really interesting that they live by, like someone that I don't want to say like larger than life, but someone that just you'll never forget.
there's a lot of people that I wouldn't say that that are larger than life, but there are definitely people that stick around in my mind a lot, and to this day, like I try to go see them as much as I can whenever they're at conventions. One of them, I met them like years ago. This was years ago. This is even before I even considered the idea of even doing cosplay photography. Um, she goes to Fanime every year. She sells her stuff. I have her posters everywhere. Um, Carrie Wink, she's the one behind the hat. Every time I go up north, I go visit her. I go to her booth, see how she's doing, get something out of it, get a keychain. Or I think she's selling masks. I'm gonna try to go see if I can get a mask now.
So
Because
is her being memorable the reason? Because I know a lot of people definitely associate you with the hat. Is that the particular reason, or you just really like foxes?
uh, funny story, it wasn't my idea. This was not my idea. I don't remember what I was doing. It was we were there was a convention, a small convention next to an airport in Portland in 2018, and I just met these two. One of them was a vlogger. They were both cosplayers, but they both like to vlog conventions, and they're just like they met me. We were talking, and we were shooting the same cosplayer at the moment. We were in the like all three of us were right there in the moment. It's like, oh, cool. We kind of started talking, hit it off. Yeah, whatever. We were talking, and then like I think Sunday, the day after, we hung out again at the convention, and it was like it's Sunday. I'm gonna go take a look at the artists' alley or the booths, see what they got. And Winkware, which is the person that makes the hat, they were there, and we were looking at it, and I think one thing led to another. But the joke was, it's like my buddy was like, "Oh, you should totally buy one, and you should wear it every time you go to a convention." I'm like, and Carrie was just like, "Yeah, yeah, you should totally buy one." I'm like, "You just want my money," and she was like, "Yeah, of course, baby." I'm like, all right, whatever, I guess I could do it, but I didn't think at that moment like I'd wore it for like I bought it. And it was the last one too. This was the last Fox hat that she had. She had like Shiba Inus. She had like Pokemon style hats and everything. But I picked the Fox one because it's like that's the last one. It's like that. I'll take the last one, and I'm not gonna get another of the others. I'm gonna get the last one. And yeah, that kind of hit it off. I went to the next convention. I wore it just as a joke, but I was actually very surprised how many people started to recognize me and like, oh my god, hey, it's you. It's like, oh, hey, I recognize you from your Fox hat. It's like, oh wow, okay, this is cool. Uh, about I think last year was it that she messaged me because then she found out that I was getting popular with the hat, and she kind of gave me the blessing. And she was like really thankful that I always supported her work. I never lie. I always tell people like, where'd you get the hat? And I'll tell them where I got it from. Like, this wasn't mine, wasn't my idea or nothing. I'll tell you where I got it from. You want to go on, see it's on Etsy or it's on Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, Winkware Designs.
Cool.
WINKWARE Designs. Instagram.
Cool. Well, we're starting to run out of time, but this was really fun. I got to kind of see a little bit about what you enjoy about this aspect. How you got your start. Now we know a little bit more about the iconic Fox hat. So I guess my last question for you is, if there's anything that you think this community could do even better, because this is obviously an awesome community. If there was one aspect that could be even better, in a brief answer, what would that be?
I would say peace, love, and harmony is greatly appreciated, but so is forgiveness. So we gotta have some of that too.
Definitely good advice.
I always tell people, life isn't about finding yourself or finding anything. Life's about creating yourself, creating things, and you should really take advantage of that with the community you're in right now, especially this one of all places where creativity is endless. So definitely keep on creating, man. Don't stop.
Definitely a good answer. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your nap. Thank you so much again for joining me. And
No, thank you, man.
definitely take care, and I greatly look forward to when we can all get together again.
Oh yeah, I look forward to the next ball once all this blows over.
Me too. All right, have a good one.
You too.